Shopping has never been easier, and that's exactly why so many of us end up with things we don't want or need. A quick scroll, a few clicks, and within literally a few hours, you can have that thing that you were eyeing on your doorstep. But it's not just about how much it's costing us in terms of our finances. As a financial therapist, I want to remind you that buying too much stuff can also drain your energy and your peace of mind. I'm Bryan-Podvin, Michigan's first financial therapist, and today we're going to be talking about overconsumerism in 3 parts. Why shopping feels so tempting, how to prevent it or limit it from happening, and what you can do to step out of the cycle of overconsumption. Consumerism is the idea that buying more equals feeling better. That if we just had a little bit more stuff, whether it's skincare, clothes, tech, or takeout, we will be happier. And that spending isn't just good for you, but it's really good for the economy. Especially in the US, consumer spending has been framed as a good thing. When we spend, it helps stimulate the economy, and the economy is where jobs are created. So a lot of fiscal or financial policy has really been built around how can we get people to buy as much stuff as possible. Remember the early COVID days when the most patriotic thing you could do is to spend your money and go shopping? Yeah, that is how deeply entrenched we are into believing that consumerism is good for not just us individually, but for us as a whole. But that pressure to spend comes at a cost. Constant shopping and consumerism can lead to burnout, anxiety, feeling behind or like you have to stay on top of trends, or literally just feeling like overwhelmed with stuff and behind financially. And that temptation to be a good consumer and overconsume things is why we're here today. Let's start at the top with why it feels so tempting. The great thing about shopping today and buying things today is it is so accessible, and that accessibility is generally a good thing. It can definitely be a gift. Think of an elderly neighbor who can't easily get out of their house to go grocery shopping and how beneficial it is to have the ability to have groceries delivered. Or even a stay-at-home parent who's got little kiddos at home and relies on that convenience of delivery to make it through the day. Online shopping can expand our possibilities too. It allows us to do something like support a teacher's classroom even if we live in a different state, or find a hyper niche product for your dog, or discover something new from a local store that doesn't have hours that you are able to visit them. But beyond the convenience of things, shopping taps directly into our emotions. I know that if you are not new here, you are not surprised to hear me say that. We don't just buy for the utility or the use of that thing. Sometimes we buy something to feel happy, excited, to have that newness, or even relief. Relief from something like a stressful day, or a long month, or a long year, or a long 5 years, or a long 9 years. Every purchase delivers us that little hit of satisfaction thanks to chemicals in our brain like dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. Which is why both in the moment, shopping feels so rewarding, and when we get that delivery to our house or apartment later on. It doesn't matter whether we're shopping for something practical like dog food or something not so practical like yet another dog toy, there is that emotional reward when we shop. You know, I'm not going to tell you not to buy stuff. In fact, I encourage us to spend in ways that align with our values and the opportunity to do fun things with your money. I have an entire video and podcast all about fun money and how spending in alignment with joy can help us feel good and also maintain that momentum towards bigger financial goals. The real challenge, though, and what I really want to be addressing today is what we are up against. Companies know exactly what different levers to pull to make shopping even more tempting and to leverage emotional triggers to encourage consumption. They can do this by adding words like today only or use this before it expires. As shoppers, we go in our brains like, I better get this now because it might disappear or the cost might never be this low again. We might also buy something because it feels unique to us. Buzzwords like just for you, tailor-made, exclusive, or yours can tap into that individuality piece and make us feel like these companies are seeing us. And when it comes to price points and the way that companies market to us, they try to make it feel like it is too good to be true. And the reality is it kind of is too good to be true. Kara Perez over at Kara Explores Money, formerly We Bravely Go, wrote in a blog that purchases like fast fashion are cheap because they are made cheaply, not just the reality of the tangible cheapness like low quality fabric or, buttons and zippers that aren't high quality, but also cheap as in not valuing human labor and human dignity. Yes, I'm talking about unsafe work conditions and unpaid and often underpaid labor. So the result of spending when we're just focused on the emotions is that we get that quick burst of satisfaction, but that satisfaction doesn't last. It ends up feeling hollow. A lot of my clients describe this as feeling really remorseful after shopping or beating themselves up after they add another book to their bookshelf that is full of unread books. And when we keep adding things to our homes and apartments that are things we don't really want or really need, it can turn into clutter. And over time, our money really moves away from doing things like supporting our long-term financial goals and that every so often fun money splurge. It just becomes heavy. A lot of people will describe having too much stuff as just feeling cluttered, feeling bogged down, and feeling just overwhelmed. Now that you know some of the reasons why overconsumerism happens, let's talk about how we can prevent overconsumption from happening in our lives. The goal of this section is to help you understand that, yes, buying something, adding something to cart can feel really good in the moment, but it leaves us feeling kind of empty or hollow or heavy afterwards. So now we really have to think about how can we prevent overconsumption from happening in the first place. As always, this is not me saying you're not allowed to buy things. I'm never going to shame you for your avocado toast or latte. I'm also not asking you to add more stuff, right? I'm not saying you need this app or you need to buy this thing from me. Instead, I just think it's helpful to zoom out and think about simplicity in our actions. And the reason for that is it's easier for us to get our heads around, and it's also more likely for us to be able to maintain any sort of behavior change when it is simple. So here are just a few ideas. One thing is just pausing before you purchase. You can wait a few minutes or even better, a few hours or a few days to see if that impulse fades. The caveat here is now stores have gotten so savvy of people adding things to cart and then wandering away that they've started retargeting you with emails or text messages that say, hey, you left something in your cart, and they usually give you a little discount. Just know that that is built into the system. And if they're telling you oh, this is the only time we're going to extend this discount to you, trust me, it'll come right back. And if you don't believe me, clear your cache, clear your cookies, and go back to that store and see that, again, they're going to send you that text or that email that says, hey, here's this amazing deal if you hit purchase on that cart. The other thing to do is to unsubscribe and unfollow. Our feeds and our inboxes are so overwhelmed with marketing emails and accounts that encourage us to buy more things. So the more we can quiet that noise, unsubscribing from emails and unfollowing accounts that are tempting you to shop, the easier it is for you just to not put that temptation in your way. Another thing is to come back to your financial goals. What are the things that you are working toward, that you are excited about, and that you are envisioning for your future self? Having that reminder can help quiet down the intensity of wanting to buy something that doesn't align with that goal. Some clients or workshop participants have done things like set the background on their phone to be a goal. Like if they're saving up for a vacation, putting a picture of that beach or that hotel that they want to visit, just to remind them, hey, this is the big goal that you want. And you can do that in a number of different ways too. I know this might not sound nearly as exciting as buying things and having things show up on your doorstep, but simple is important, and being really clear with you helps you to prevent that temptation from starting. So we're just trying to remove that clutter from our lives. Now, moving into the third part of this video, or if you're listening to this podcast, how do we get out of this cycle if we're already in it? What are some other things that we can do? So many of us have so much stuff. And what I mean by that is literally boxes or bags full of things that we just keep moving with us from apartment to apartment or home to home. So I would invite you to do a practice of rehoming items, which is my way of saying, how can you lovingly get rid of or part with items that you no longer want or need? Not just by like throwing them in the trash, but by passing them on to someone or somewhere where these items can be useful. Rehoming to me is really an act of community reciprocity that means donating, selling, or gifting items with the belief that when I say this thing is useful, but it no longer has use for me, but I can imagine it adding value to somebody else, I'm going to go ahead and rehome that item. And this does a couple of things. One is that it literally clears out the physical clutter and physical space, but it also helps us to connect to communities and causes that we care about. Need an example? If you have too many blankets or towels and you're an animal lover, you can call your local animal shelter to see if they would take them. If you've got extra kids' books from a season of your kids' lives that they've kind of outgrown in terms of what they're reading right now, invite your kid to help you rehome them. I can imagine a scenario in which you and your child or children can fill up a bag of books and map out where there are a few little libraries and drop 1, 2, 3 books in each of those little libraries as a way to reinvest in your community. If you don't have little libraries available to you in your area, you can do this old school or new school, depending on your train of thought, and actually bring them to your local public library. For a lot of libraries, if they can't put a book in circulation, they'll accept donated books and actually sell them to generate revenue for the library. Outside of rehoming, you can think about replacing that reward. As I mentioned earlier, shopping delivers that chemical hit that feels really good, but so do other types of behaviors. If you want the cliff notes, I'll give them here, but of course you can visit that longer video. You can do things like go for a quick walk outside, get in a quick HIIT workout, call a friend that you keep meaning to catch up with. You can drop a postcard or a letter in the mail for a loved one who's across the country, or check a task off of that lingering to-do list of the things that you've been putting off. When it comes to consumerism, a thing that I see happen a lot, and I will raise my hand and give a very recent example, is that we have so much stuff that we somehow think that if I had the right thing to organize this stuff, then this problem would be solved. So recent example is I was trying to clean out my office closet, which you can sort of see over here. And I opened it and was really overwhelmed. And my immediate consumerist brain went to, I need the right cubby or basket or, shelf, whatever, to organize all this stuff in here. But before I gave myself permission to buy the organizational tool, I actually literally took everything out of the closet. And what I found was that after I cleaned it out, a lot of the stuff was just papers that needed to be recycled, books that needed to be rehomed into a little library, and some of it was just junk that I didn't realize. I'd kind of used my office closet as I'll deal with it later pile. And once I actually cleaned it out, I realized I didn't need to buy another storage tool or organizational tool. I just had to literally clean it out. If you are finding yourself buying things to organize the things that you have, maybe do a once over before buying the thing. Does that make sense? I feel like I kind of went in a circle. But anyway, the point is that these small shifts of tackling a task, going for a walk, calling a friend helps us to kind of rewire our brain around that coping skill that we lean toward, which is buying something, adding to cart, shopping, whatever, and start thinking about other ways to feel good without impacting our wallets. The next tip is to spend strategically. Rather than reacting to the marketing flash sales, plan ahead. Write out a list of the items that you truly want or need. And then if and when a sale happens, you can align it with whether or not that thing is already on your list. That way you do get a discount on something you were planning on buying, but you're not tempted by a one-off lipstick sale if you, raise his hand like me, aren't a lipstick girly. That's something that I do every year on my birthday. I make a list of things that I want that year and give myself permission to buy them if I have the funds to do so. The last thing I'll say about how to get out of this cycle is sometimes connecting it to something bigger. Yes, our dollars matter and not having a cluttered home matters, but also thinking about the impact on your environment or your community of buying another thing. If you are particularly sustainability minded and eco-driven, you can do a quick search to see how much carbon is offset every time you purchase an item and have it delivered. Or if your values don't align with supporting or purchasing things from places where the factories are not humane, then redirecting how you purchase and purchasing from something that may be more costly but may be more ethically made can help dial down some of those impulse purchases. So that's a bigger thing that you can kind of keep in mind if you're finding yourself in that cycle of overconsumption, which is like, how else does this purchase impact my world or my community if it's really hard for you to just focus on like yourself and your bank account? So those are some ideas to help you avoid that spending regret and get out of that cycle of consumption. I'm sure you have other ideas, and if you have them, things that have helped you or worked for you, go ahead and drop them in the comments below. Practicing habits like rehoming, replacing shopping with other meaningful activities, and spending strategically in alignment with your values and goals creates space for our finances and our peace of mind. It's not about telling yourself, I'm never going to buy again or I'm never going to shop again, but it's about being more purposeful, more intentional, and more sustainable, both in the macro environmental sustainability and sustainability in terms of adhering to a new behavior. Avoiding overconsumption isn't about punishing yourself for making bad choices. Instead, it's about getting curious about why you might be engaging in this behavior and how you might want to shift some of your habits or behaviors to feel a little bit more aligned with your overall goals and values. Shopping is going to continue to be tempting, and emotional rewards are a part of the process, and marketers build that into the experience. So the key is to hit pause, slow down, reconnect with your bigger why so that you can meet those emotional needs. So the next time you find yourself really tempted by that latest sale or a just for you offer, just remember, you've got the power to move out of this cycle, making smaller shifts that help you reclaim your relationship with money and build habits that help to cultivate a financially well or financially healthy relationship with money. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. If any of these tips resonated with you, drop them in the comments or share this video or podcast with a friend, and I will see you next time. Bye.